Ladies and gents, we are back at it again. My name is Princess Motaung. I am from the KZN Sport Confederation under Mabenya Sports Consultants. And today we are going to be chatting to the president of the KZN Indigenous Games, Mr. Sibusiso Dlamini. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Siyabonga, to be part of this big vision, especially for media sport. For Amabenya consultant, especially making sure that sports is coming in the worldwide, and maybe looking at even sports confederation to make sure that maybe they are part of a stream and make sure that maybe as our sport are dominating in the space of media.
All right, thank you so much. I can tell that you have so much that you are loaded with. But before we get to the nitty-gritties of sports and what it is that you do in terms of your capacity as the president of the Indigenous Games, KZN, can you, in a nutshell, just tell us about your journey and how you started out?
As Sibusiso Dlamini, I started in Lamontville, born from Lamontville. Where we started most of the sporting court. Sometimes when you're starting sport, you're playing everything, but the one that was dominating is football. So we're starting from football, and then we went up. We even have the teams, previously were called the League Vodacom, currently is called Motsepe League. So we're just the followers of those teams, and then maybe we end up being a kids manager of that club. To make sure that maybe umuntu uyakwazi ukuparticipate ngendlela ekuyiyona. And then we're moving around in the province. I remember in that club we finished in the second position in our first season. But as things went on, we need more support when it's come to football. So I just changed some of my stuff, especially move from football, not just totally move, but starting my club, the Lamontville Warriors, especially for development. So the club started very well, and we work like as an academy where we're developing athletes for our club. Looking at, we had a team for females, we have a team for males that was playing previously. I think those leagues were called APSA, when I'm remembering right. So on my side, I think that is where I'm started, but especially for football, and then boom, go back now to Indigenous Games, yes, where now I'm more full-time, especially when it's coming to a federation. So Indigenous Games here, we started in 2003, where there was like making sure there is a growth in these games, implementation around maybe the province, but Indigenous Games came from PMP, Peter Marisbeck, from Osobantu, one of the court to Tibege. They came and introduced it in Durban, where Mlazi, and then he went to Lamonti, and then we just moved Colchesterville, and now we can say all the corners of KwaZulu-Natal was playing that sporting court. And then after that, some of the court, they were coming in. So we're part of that journey of making sure that those courts are in. Even on my side, as I was a young boy from Lamontville, starting like playing in some of those courts. But now things are changing because there was a gap regarding administration. We had people who are heading the administration. So I came in to administration to make sure maybe part of the administration come as a coach, coaching maybe the athletes, move, come as a technical official, move in that part, come as an administrator now. When you're talking about administrator, talking in the part of structures now, part of the executive committees, especially for the court. So I moved, especially when I was looking at maybe one now come as a PRO, come as a secretary, come as a chairperson to head the codes. So that was the part of me. But to make sure that the sport, you come full time. When I'm talking about full time, looking at even part of education, because that is another chain where we are looking at of saying, as I'm doing sport, but I need to do a capacity building on myself. Yes. So I went through to different coaching courses, even maybe in football. I went to do my level 1. I went to netball, many of the sporting code, even cricket, to make sure that I get the capacity. But it never went there. I just decided, let me go to the university and get more in Durban, when we're talking about Durban, of technology, DUT. So where I was trying to get that part of sport management, but even doing some of the courses, especially those maybe took 1 month, few months, do first aid, but to make sure that I have a proper education, that they can support what I'm doing in sport, but is assisting me now, especially when we're looking at even Indigenous games, because it's gonna be better when we just introduce something and say you can come up with the content of the sport. So that is a part of me.
Yeah, that is really an amazing journey. And I hear you mentioning the educational aspect of it, introducing these codes and having capacity building programs happening to make sure that school sport does accommodate Indigenous games. But we will get into it a bit later. For someone who is listening to this, or rather watching this at home, who's probably wondering, nama Indigenous games, can you break down to the viewer at home and tell us them more about our Indigenous games, because a lot of people still don't know and understand what our Indigenous games are. Because a lot of us, they know some of these games. We grew up playing Sibono Koko Bewa Dlala, which was later on transferred into the as Abantwana Sikula Suadlala. But now we see these games being played at a competitive level. In fact, in South Africa, all 9 provinces do participate in the Indigenous Games Championships. So can you break down for someone at home who doesn't know our Indigenous Games and the codes, the various codes that we have under this umbrella term, which is our IGs?
Okay. I think on our side, when we talk about Indigenous Games, all sporting codes are Indigenous Games.
Yes.
Talking about cricket or football. But now, for us, we have a number of codes that need more administration and need more giving them, especially part of documents, rules, putting down. I think for Indigenous games, previously people, they were just having time to enjoy, making sure that they create that environment in their community of teamwork, introducing each other in some of the activities, that somebody just be creative, let's create the ball and play. So people, they know when we talk about Tabo Shumpu, talking about Tabo Makenda, talking about Tabo Mlabalaba, talking about Tabo Ngatu, talking about Tabo Nchuva. So some of the codes now, we have 9 codes that are playing around nationally, not talking about only KZN. As KwaZulu-Natal, we have those codes too that are playing around, and they are doing very well currently. Why they are doing well? One, some of the people, they would say, hey, when you're talking about Amakenda, you can compete with those games, you can move to international days, because now they have a proper structure, they have roots, so it's not like previously. When you talk about Ingatu, people, they were thinking just playing Isonto Lamakwala, Isonto Lamasayoni. Those are the songs people, they will know. Amashikoshi. So those are the songs that they were excited. But when you go in now and watch these games, you will be very excited and see, oh, now there is a big change, especially looking at how they are playing.
Yeah.
Even the members of the community of KwaZulu-Natal, they are doing very well. Especially even the attire that they are playing with. Previously, you were just coming out a kaya, wearing your stuff, but now we introduce even playing attire, playing equipment. So there is a lot that is happening, especially for these games. And people, they know Indigenous games. That is why I'm saying all sporting codes are just Indigenous games. It's just that it's the part of the administration where now you need to make sure that you put each and every code globally, because each and every code that we have is started like a recreation, just to enjoy, no winning, everyone is a winner, end of the day, no medal. But now we're changing that part of saying this game we can do a competition. We will not like introducing as a recreation. So Indigenous games, if you are sitting and say it's still the same, yeah, it's still the same, but now there is a lot that is happening when it's come to the codes that we are playing.
It's quite interesting. Now, over the weekend, we do understand that there were some activities happening at Stenga with regards to our Indigenous games. Can you tell us a bit more about what transpired in those games?
For provincial games, as KwaZulu-Natal, I think it was a 16 years now where we're participating in this competition. I think in Stenga, I think was second time or third time to participate in that district. But the provincial games is assisting, especially our community, because it started from a local level where they are doing selections for their players to make sure that those players and coaches, they will participate for district team. After that, they're coming up for provincial games. So it's like the teams, when you talk about Zululand, talking about Erikwala, they done a selection so that they can get the cream. So we have the numbers on the ground that will come and participate in the provincial games. So for provincial games is where all the district, they give us their cream, the best players, best coaches, even the best technical official that will participate in the game. So those games, they're assisting us, especially making sure that social cohesion from KwaZulu-Natal is met for our community, understand each other, see especially our performance as KwaZulu-Natal, because the more you have a good performance when it comes to the team, you must know that you deliver a good team for the people of KwaZulu-Natal. So when you're looking at even some of the districts, they can dominate, but they will not say they would go easy to each other, because there is a competition when you're talking about Indigenous games in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So the provincial games, there was that part of competition. All our codes participated, and all districts, they were part of those games.
All right, now speaking about the dominance of certain districts in the provincial sector of IGs, we heard that eTheku once again came up victorious in those games that happened over the weekend as Stenga. Can you tell us about the dominance of eTheku as well as the province of KwaZulu-Natal when it comes to the Indigenous games, the national champs? How do you do it, and how are you able to maintain that dominance over the years, ulama competitions?
I think for the district, looking at all the districts, I think they are doing the justice when it comes to Indigenous games to make sure that they give the competition. When we're talking about now eThekwini, I think that is one of the districts making sure that, as we see now, the province got the cream, especially for the players and everyone. They've never been jealous of introducing these games. And I remember one of the years, they were this part of saying maybe other districts won the overall, maybe another one won again the overall, showing that now everyone understands the game. So I think for eThekwini, they are doing very well, especially making sure that these games are played and these games are taken serious, because one, you get the metro on board, is mean all the district, they will get on board and they want to compete with the best. So eThekwini is showing that part of coming the best for Indigenous games in the province, and make sure that these games are being shown in all districts. So currently, as eThekwini coming as a champs, even when we closed for COVID, they were the champs. So I think for them to take the game serious and make sure that they have trainings, they have their competition, that is how you maintain your winning. So for eThekwini, I think that is a part. When you talk about KwaZulu-Natal, they won in 10 times in a row. For us, we always make sure that we don't sleep. We don't sleep. We're making sure that KwaZulu-Natal, one, when we're looking at the competition and the players, they are active. So even introducing some of the things, some of the province that they don't introduce when it's come to players, to their teams. So as KwaZulu-Natal, we are ahead, especially in the province, managing this team, making sure that they are well prepared where they are going for national competition. So for us, I think there's a lot is happening behind the scenes when you're talking about teams that we are preparing, even maybe districts. That is why when you have strong districts, you must know you will get a strong team, even provincially. If nationally they are strong as KwaZulu-Natal, they would get a strong team as KwaZulu-Natal and the national team.
Oh, that's really an amazing work that KZN was able to do and accomplish in terms of the Indigenous Games. As you heard, they are currently sitting on 10 titles and they will be looking forward to defend that title because they are the current champions of their national Indigenous Games. So now we do understand that the championships are coming up next month, a couple of days away from the beginning of those championships. So how can the people at home be part and parcel of these games?
I think as we are sitting now, Mabenya, they will do their best to make sure, and Sport Confederation show social media, even maybe communication in print, radio, people they would get that part, but they need to go down to Potchefstroom for national games, where we will be having our national festival. But currently now, you can just sit at home, open your Facebook, open your Twitter, for the updates and see Indigenous games playing on your stream, and you will say, wow. And then you will enjoy even when you are sitting at home. So when we have those companies that are showing our people what is happening, you don't need much. Even now, you can just get something that is already been recorded and go through. Maybe you would want to see live. So we can encourage the members of saying these games are available, especially on your Facebooks, on your YouTubes now. Yes. When you're talking about that part, where you can see, when you're talking about Coco, go and Google. Mabenya will give you that part. So for us, that is a part of saying, if you want to see this game, there is these things of live stream now.
So Mabenya Consultant has a lot of work to do in terms of marketing and promoting these games. But we do want the people to come and witness them as they happened, as opposed to watching on YouTube, Googling them, the same way they support other sporting codes like your cricket, rugby, and football. So we do know that these games will be happening at Potchefstroom. Have the dates been confirmed yet?
For opening, we will be 24 opening ceremony. The games are starting in the 25th of September in Market.
You've heard it. So for more information regarding that, you can keep checking their social media pages. You can check on Mabenya Sports Consultant, as well as the KZN Sport Confederation and KZN DSEC. For more information, it will be posted on their social media pages. Thank you so much once again for your time. But before I let you go, you did mention earlier on that the educational aspect of it. So now we understand that they are still growing. Yes, they have grown a lot in the past, and we have seen a lot of development and improvement in terms of, the introduction of new players coming in and the old ones leaving, and what they continue to do beyond just being athletes. Some of them are involved in the administration of these games. So now going back to school sports, we know how important school sport is and the role that it plays in terms of, equipping and nurturing these players, which will later on serve as a feeder system for provincial going into the national games. So what initiatives are currently happening from your office, and what you as a person in your own personal capacity are you introducing to the community and schools as well to make sure that we do have programs like you were mentioning before of capacitating the coaches to be able to go back to schools and the community to educate and run coaching clinics for people to grow and understand the officiating part of these games?
I think for us as Indigenous Games, there is a lot we need to do.
Yes.
Especially when I'm saying there is a lot. One, you will find yourself in the phase of introducing the code. Every time people, you need to remind them about the code. But when now you have a system, now we have a membership. We have a membership around the province. All districts are part of us. And then even the codes that we have, they are part of us. So in that part now for membership, we are done. It's just that now for community, they will always want to know about Indigenous games. They will always want to participate in Indigenous games. But on our side, especially when we're talking even the development, that is another part that we need to go to now, of saying we have open competition, and maybe you're talking about schools. You will be having Abo under 13, Abo under 10, who can play these games, and maybe making sure that we'll be having a proper development when we're talking about athletes. When we're talking about coaches, they get a capacity that will assist them, or especially for the training. We give them the levels and we make sure that they are growing officials. So that is another part that we are developing currently of the content of those coaches, technical officials, even administrators, that they can work. Particularly for us, that is a development that we're currently doing, and making sure that people will understand Indigenous games. They can have the book of Indigenous games, talk about coaching, talk about administration. So those are the things that we need to do, especially for Indigenous games. But as a code, you always have new things that you want to introduce. In the code, there is a lot of things that even in the society that are happening. Currently, maybe today you can think that your phone is still on track, but you'll find that there is some apps that are not in that you need to introduce. Same thing as Indigenous games. Each and every day now we need to looking at some of the angles of making sure that the codes are growing. The code as Indigenous games is growing, especially people, they would say they want to associate themselves with this brand. So that is another part that we are looking at, of saying Indigenous games is not only about playing, and then maybe when you're looking at Indigenous games, you will find the gender is balanced. When you went to our games, you will not find only maids playing Tibege or Shumpu. You will find a mix, because even previously, when we participating in this thing, we're mixed when it's come to competition. So that's what we are doing as Indigenous game, that we are happy with, of saying our codes are balanced. There is no way we can compromise the part of saying gender balance or who's dominates. So even the committees that we have, females are there, maids are there, everyone is there when we're talking about the society of South Africa that want to participate, especially for this code. So for us, I think we are very excited, and then we are very happy to do these games.
Appreciate your time. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you this day about the Indigenous Games and what to expect going forward into the national champs. Thank you so much for your time once again.
Thank you very much. I think on our side, as Indigenous Games, KwaZulu-Natal, we want to thank Mabenya Sport Consultant, especially making sure they are putting our sports on the map, even Sport Confederation, to make sure that they are working with these big companies of putting sport of KwaZulu-Natal in the high note, and then maybe even the Department of Sport, Art and Culture, because they are supporting our programs. So that is another part we say we want to thank them and make sure that our sport grow, and then we come as a winning nation as KwaZulu-Natal. So as Indigenous Games, we always win. We're always making sure that we are the best in this world.
Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard it yourself from the president of the KZN Indigenous Games, Mr. Sibusiso Dlamini, as he was sharing some light on the upcoming Indigenous Games national champs. But for now, though, from myself, Princess Motaung, as well as the Mabenya sports consultants, it is a goodbye until we meet again.